There are 55 brawlers with a hypercharge in Brawl Stars, so I will be ranking every single hypercharge from the worst all the way to the very best. This will give you guys an idea on which ones you should be unlocking and which ones you should not be excited about if you unlock them. Have fun with this video, and let's go. Starting off with the worst hypercharge in the game we have, Pearl's Hypercharge. The hypercharge creates a burning effect, but Pearl super knocks you out of it, so it makes no sense. It's a terrible hypercharge, and the worst. Next up is Nanny's Hypercharge. This one is terrible because most of the hypercharge is wasted in your super, and the stat boosts are terrible. It doesn't provide any value, and it's not worthwhile getting. Next up we have Miko's Hypercharge. This one isn't the worst, but it takes a long time to get, and Miko's super in general doesn't provide much value, and the hypercharge is very underwhelming. So for those reasons, it's one of the worst. Now we have Sprout's Hypercharge. So all it does is leave a burning bush that deals damage to enemies. But the problem is, no one will even get close to it. So it is useless. I don't think I have ever dealt any damage with it, and it's just terrible. That's the F tier done. Now we will move on to the D tier. Starting off the D tier, we have Brock's Hypercharge. So still after so many buffs, it's still one of the worst. In competitive play, you will see the pros use the super, then click the hypercharge for the boosts, because the hypercharge super is so bad. It still doesn't provide much value, and it's definitely one of the worst. So now we have Poco's Hypercharge. This one doesn't give a lot of value because the shield dies out so quickly that if you heal people on max health, you are basically just wasting your super. The only good things is that he cycles to it quite quickly, but other than that, it's pretty useless. So next up we have Charlie's Hypercharge. This one is pretty bad because the spiders do literally nothing. The only situation that they might be useful is to tank a few shots from snipers, but it's still terrible. So now we have Tick's Hypercharge. So all it does is the head travels quicker and leaves mines behind when it explodes. But the problem is, no one is dumb enough to walk into the mines. The hypercharge charge rate got buffed recently, but it's still very underwhelming. So now we have Jean's Hypercharge. So the hypercharge super is pretty terrible, but the reason it is not lower is that the stat boosts are pretty good, especially the speed, and also the super is a lot quicker, which can allow you to get the kill quicker. So that's the only good thing about, and everything else is bad. That's the D tier done. Now onto the C tier. First hypercharge in the C tier is EMZ's Hypercharge. So what it does is that it gives a little knockback and a little spray of damage, which doesn't do much. The knockback can be useful against assassins, but it's not that great. It's basically just an extra gadget, and I don't really like it. So now for Fang's Hypercharge. The Hypercharge super itself is pretty good, but the thing is that it takes so incredibly long to get it. I think you need like 4 supers to charge it, and you will be lucky to get one in a game, and against good players, you will never get it, so it has to go here. So net up in the C tier, we have 8-Bit's Hypercharge, so another hypercharge which is very lackluster. This one doesn't really provide any value. The only thing it might do is charge a bit of super, but most of the time you will put it behind a wall, and if you put it out in the open, it will get destroyed in a few seconds. It's not going to deal much damage. The only good thing about it is the speed boost, but outside of that, it's pretty bad. So now we have Daryl's Hypercharge. The hypercharge super itself isn't great, but the shield boost and speed boost make it worthwhile, especially because you can tank so much damage and make so many more plays. You can cycle through supers quite quickly with the hypercharge, but it does no extra damage, and it's only good for the stat boosts. Next up, we have Primo's Hypercharge. So again, the hypercharge super itself isn't that great. It's more to do with the stat boosts he gets. The extra speed and shield can help him a lot. But the hypercharge super is terrible, so it's just not worthwhile getting. So now, we have Squeak's Hypercharge. So this one is very inconsistent. Sometimes you can get a really good hypercharge super that can change the game, but most of the time the extra super lands way across the map, not even affecting the play, so it's only good for the stat boosts. So next up is Shelly's Hypercharge. So one of the first ones, the hypercharge super, is very boring and blank, but you can cycle this one pretty quickly and get some value out of it, so it can be effective sometimes. Now next up in the C tier is Angelo's Hypercharge. This one is actually really good and it allows you to remove where you want. But the problem is that it takes so long to charge that you will rarely get it. So for that reason, it's in the C tier. So next we have Colt's Hypercharge. So, just like Shelly's, this one is very boring, but the extra width in the Hypercharge Super can help you hit more of the shots. And the stat boosts are also really good, and they help him in game modes like Heist where Colt can deal more damage. And lastly, in the C tier, is going to be Spike's Hypercharge. So another Hypercharge that is just a bigger super, which doesn't add to much value. It can be good for area control in Brawl Ball or Hot Zone, but there are just better Hypercharges out there. Now that the C tier is finished, we can move on to the B tier. These ones will be good in some situations, but not as good as the A or S tier. Starting off the B tier is Belle's Hypercharge. Now what this does is that the Hypercharge super homes in, so you won't miss it. But the thing is that the super is already pretty easy to hit. The thing that really shines from Belle's Hyperchair is the star boosts. The extra damage helped her a lot, and I find I get more kills just from that damage boost. So now moving on, we have Rosa's Hyperchagri. The Hypercharge super itself isn't great, but the stat boosts, the shield, the speed, the damage makes her unstoppable in Hypercharge form, and she also has the slow effect, which helps her close the gap with enemies, so it's a good Hypercharge. So now we have Jackie's Hypercharge. This one is very scary to play against. The slow on the super is great to stop the enemies from escaping. The stat boosts are also good, and you can make so many plays with it. It's a very solid Hypercharge. So next is Cordelius. So what it does is that it slows the enemies down a lot in the Shadows realm, and you can get that free kill. So it's very good, but it takes a while to charge up and it doesn't have the team wipe potential that a lot of the top Hypercharges do, so it's alright. So next in the B tier is Gale's Hypercharge. So this used to be one of the best in the game, but with the recent nerfs to the charge rate for both his super and Hypercharge, it has really hurt Gale a lot. It now takes forever to charge like Fang, and you rarely get it in a game. The Hypercharge itself is very good, but the charge rate is the big problem. So now we have Piper's Hypercharge, so when she uses her super, she drops more bombs and knocks people back where she lands. So this is quite useful, and you can make some great plays with this. The extra damage is also really nice. This is a Hypercharge worth buying. Next up, we have Bull's Hypercharge. So this one can tank so much damage, and it allows you to charge at any opponent and deal a lot of damage in cycle to your next super. It has a lot of team wipe potential, and it makes Bull a much better brawler, so for that reason, it has to be B tier. So now we have Crow's Hypercharge. So the super itself isn't anything special. Many people think that it will get many crazy team wipes, but a lot of the time it is very lackluster. But in Heist, it is a game changer, and it can deal 50% of the heist safe. So it has to be higher up because of how much damage it can deal to a stationary target. So next is Jesse's Hypercharge. So all it is just a bigger Jesse turret. Of course it's good in Heist, but outside of that it's just good for wasting the opponent's ammo. The good thing though is that it does cycle very quickly, less than 2 supers, so it's an okay Hypercharge. So next we have Nita's Hypercharge. So similar to Jesse, it's good in Heist but not great outside of that because it's just going to get deleted very quickly. Nita's is better though because it can also force the opponents back as well as waste their ammo. So next in the B tier is Maisie's Hypercharge. So you can get some crazy team wipes with it because of the extra shots that come with the Maisie super. So the reason why Maisie was so broken in the past was because of her Hypercharge and cycling abilities. So the reason why it has dropped down is because of her supercharge rate nerf which has affected her Hypercharge, but you can still get some crazy team wipes. So next Hypercharge is Otis Hypercharge. So with this Hypercharge, the super will stun opponents on impact the mute them like normal. There was a bug with this that has now been fixed, so it is working properly now. It also charges in only 2 supers, so you will be getting it quite frequently. It is a fantastic Hypercharge and has made Otis a better brawler. So next up is Ruff's Hypercharge. So Ruff's Hypercharge gives any brawler on your team their Hypercharge when the power cube is picked up. It mechanically seems broken, but it can be really awkward sometimes to use, at the correct timing when your teammates need it. It takes a lot of coordination with your teammates and a lot of the time it can go wrong. And lastly in the B tier, we have Tara's Hypercharge. So this one only takes 2 supers to get, and it's just a higher Tara super. That might not sound like much, but the bigger super can pull multiple people and leads to many team wipes which can change the game. Even though Tara isn't the best brawler, her Hypercharge definitely makes her better. That's the B tier done. Now onto the A tier. So moving on, we have Barley's Hypercharge. So this one is very underrated, It does a lot of damage, and the area control is insane. It's probably the reason that Barley is rising up the meta right now, so it's a very strong hypercharge. Next up, we have Edgar's Hypercharge. So this one was broken on release, but as the meta has evolved, it is slowly dropping down. The Hypercharge takes a while to build up because of how bad Edgar is, but the Hypercharge itself is very good. You can get a lot of team wipes and kills, so it's decent. So now we have BB's Hypercharge. So when you hit a Hypercharge bubble, it will split off into two bubbles, so this one can do so much damage, put so much pressure on the opponents and make a lot of game-changing plays. Also, the shield and speed boosts are so good on BB and make her a monster in Hypercharge form. So next is a new Hypercharge in Janet. This Hypercharge is very underrated, and it charges in only 2 supers. It is so much easier to hit the bombs and deal more damage to the opponents. It's great for confirming kills, and it allows to you charge up another super right after. It's a very strong Hypercharge, and it has shot Janet up the meta. Next in the A tier, we have another new Hypercharge with Barry. This is another underrated Hypercharge that people are sleeping on. It doesn't feel like anything crazy because most of the time you are using it to heal up your team instead of going in. But in the right situation like in Hot Zone or Gem Grab, you can get so much healing and cycle through it so quickly. So in competitive, it's at least A tier. So next up is Stu's Hypercharge. So this one takes a very long time to get, but it's worth it because you won't get crazy team wipes. But you can get so much mobility and pressure on the opponents, can be game-changing. So it's definitely a good Hypercharge. So now we have Colette's Hypercharge. So the reason why it's so good is because you can cycle it so quickly. If the spirit hits someone, you instantly get your super back so you can deal more damage. It can deal 20% of the heist safe. And of course, it destroys tanks. So it's a strong Hypercharge. So next US is Sandy's Hypercharge. So the reason why it's so strong is because the Hypercharge basically lasts the whole Sandy super. And you teammates get that speed boost for the full duration of the super. The mute is also great as well as the stat boosts. It does take a while to cycle though, but it's still a very good Hypercharge. So now we have Buzz's Hypercharge, so you get infinite supers as long as you hit a wall. So you can make so many great plays with this like traveling across the map, and you can also stun lock people if they are near a wall, so it's a great Hypercharge. So moving on, we have Penny's Hypercharge. So this one doesn't sound great, but it is. It gives you so much area control and it can cause much chaos. On certain maps and scenarios, it will pop off for you and the enemies won't be able to take it down, so it deserves to be this higher up. Next, in the A tier, we have another new Hypercharge in Eve. This one is really strong because you can spawn so many hatchlings on the map and it can just overwhelm the opponents. And if you use the mythic gear, you can spawn even more. The only downside to this is that it can be hard to build up the Hypercharge against good players because they can dodge Eve's attack. But other than that, it's really strong. So next is Leon's Hypercharge. So whenever he uses his super, he stays invisible, even if he attacks, which mechanically is absolutely broken. It has received some small nerfs in the charge rate, but it's still broken. The damage output is insane. You can get so many kills and cycle your super, so it's insane. And lastly, in the A tier, we have a new Hypercharge in Gray. And this one is really good as well. So it's essentially a Gray super, but it stays on the map infinitely, and it gives you 1000 HP shield when you go through it. This is just mechanically broken, and there are so many cheesy strategies with this. This will pair so well with tanks on Hot Zone and in Gem Grab. It's another great Hypercharge in the new batch. And that is the A tier done. Now moving on to the best of the best, the S tier. Starting off the S tier, we have Lou's Hypercharge. So Lou's Hypercharge is so good now, with the recent reload speed buff to low. You are able to just hit more shots and cycle through to the Hypercharge a lot quicker. An instant freeze is so strong, especially because you can throw it over walls, you can change the game so quickly, cycle to multiple Hypercharges in a game. It's very strong. So next we have Mortis. So the bats come back to you when you throw them out, which leads to double the damage, double the heal, and double the chance to survive and get kills. This one has so much team wipe potential. All you have to do is line up 2 people with your super and you can cycle it again. It did get a nerf in the charge rate recently, but it's still broken. So next up is Surge. So whenever he is in Hypercharge form, his attacks will split. And when he uses his super, he will get additional range, so you can deal massive amounts of damage to the opponents. The stat boosts are also insane. And all of this combined can lead to many team wipes and kills, which can change the game, and it's the insanely strong Hypercharge. So next in the S tier, we have another new Hypercharge in Ashe. So the reason why this is so strong is because there is a bug with him. They lets him extend the duration of the Hypercharge by dealing damage, which of course is very broken. Ashe also gets a speed boost, a big shield boost, and the rats itself are very strong and can deal a lot of damage, as well as charge Ashe's rage bar. It's very good and has made Ashe a top-tier brawler. So moving into the top 5 hypercharges in the game, starting off with Frank, so when he uses his hypercharge, his super will go in a 360 around him. This is a crazy ability. You can hit so many people and the stat boosts. Especially the shield are crazy. He gets such a strong shield that it's impossible to kill him in hypercharge from. And he can cycle the hypercharge 3 or 4 times a game easily. Of course, it's not always the best to open up a map when you're a Frank, so it might hurt him in that sense, but it's still a great hypercharge. So moving on to the 4th best hypercharge we have. Rico? So this one is completely broken. If you remember the Rico mutation a few seasons ago, the bullets will keep bouncing and bouncing, and they would be unavoidable. The team wipe potential is crazy. You can make so many plays and get so many kills. Rico can cycle it so quickly, which leads to multiple team wipes without needing much skill, so it's absolutely one of the best in the game. So now moving inside the top 3, starting off with Max. So this one is completely broken. If you all group up together when Max uses her Hypercharge super, you will all charge 75% of your super as well as get that insane speed boost which lasts for such a long time. This combined just leads your team to overwhelming the opposition and making that decisive move to change the game, so it's absolutely inside the top 3. So now the second best Hypercharge goes to Dynamic. So what this does is it adds additional damage to the Dynamic Bomb. Then it will throw out dynamic sticks, after which can help charge your next super. So he can deal more damage. The team wipe potential here is through the roof. He cycles this one so quickly, so it's absolutely the second best in the game. And the best hypercharge in Brawl Stars goes to Melody. The reason why it is so good is because it stacks onto her star powers and gadgets. So if you have 6 notes circling you, you get that 36% boost in movement speed, and on top of that, if you are running the Interlude gadget, you gain a 60% shield. You are so fast and so tanky, and you deal so much damage, so it's easily the best hypercharge in Brawl Stars. And that is every hypercharge in Brawl Stars ranked from worst to best. If you guys enjoyed this video, I recommend you watch this video right here, where I rank the 10 easiest max tiers in Brawl Stars. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.